right, thank you everyone for coming to this afternoon's event. I'm just going to briefly introduce our speaker today, Dr. Walter Ferreira de Oliveira. Walter received his medical degree from the School of Medicine and Surgery in Rio de Janeiro State, Brazil, and he earned his MPH and PhD at the University of Minnesota. And I'll cut this short and just mention that he's going to be speaking a bit today about a book that he co-authored with the late Paolo Freire and Freire's widow, Ana Maria Araujo Freire. Is that right? Kind of? Okay. And that's about it. So please join me in welcoming Walter.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the invitation to come here at the University of Washington. One of the reasons I was invited to come here was about this new book coming out was that I had the honor and pleasure to work with Paolo Freire, one of the most renowned educators in the whole world. It's a man that's being translated into every live language I know. And I had the opportunity of being friends with him and his wife, and we prepared for a long time this book. He died in the process, not for doing the book, but he passed away when we were preparing the whole work. But we took as a mission to get this book out, in which he talks about different things than he talks about in most of his books, because we decided to do a program when I was teaching at the University of Northern Iowa to talk about what was his vision for the future, taking into context the issue of globalization and privatization of life and all the things that we've been seeing happening. So that was a great honor to work with him, to write with him, to be a part of this struggle. In the American edition, we also have a chapter by Norman K. Denzin, who is now the most published scholar in the field of qualitative research. Actually, I'm just coming from Champaign, Illinois, where I went to this conference on qualitative research, and it's unbelievable what they're doing there. They're doing work on qualitative research as a matter of social action, using research as social action, and using a lot of arts-based research. The work they're doing there is fantastic. So I just came from Champaign to here. And what I'm going to try to do with you today is, if we can, engage in some dialogue. And to provoke that dialogue, I would like to start organizing a little bit of my thoughts on the issue of solidarity, which is something that I've been taking as a provoking issue in my mind and with my students, with my colleagues. But of course, I have no final word about anything, and much less about solidarity in a world as we live today. So I organized some thoughts here that I'm going to try to talk with you, and if we have time, dialogue a little bit. And in the second part, after presenting that, I'm going to try to show you a little bit through photographs what I really do with all this, okay? So what I'm going to do is try to think and put together some thoughts on the issue of solidarity, starting from some dilemmas that I identify as dilemmas of solidarity. And I just put some of them there. And the first thing I put there was social justice, of course, because we're talking about solidarity. We're talking about how we engage into productive relationships with other people that somehow need our engagement. And the issue of social justice immediately came to my mind, because I cannot talk about the whole world. So most of what I'm going to talk about here, my examples and where I'm coming from, is from the current situation that I lived through in Brazil. For some of you, it's going to resonate, but I'm not daring to talk about your situation here. You know better than me what's going on here. So I'm going to talk about Brazil. That's where I'm coming from. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I talk about solidarity is social justice. Brazil has been a country that has going in the direction of more and more inequality, more and more iniquity, more and more exploitation of the people, more and more discrimination of the poor, disguised by a very strong economy, a very strong orientation toward the respect of human rights, and a discourse of government about how we have to help the poor and all that. But in practical terms, we have a very problematic situation in which the rich is getting richer, the poor is getting poorer. And the middle class is kind of in the middle of all that, certainly having more facilities for traveling, for money, for housing, for a lot of stuff, but also paying much more than we paid, usually because of the privatization of life. I was giving some examples during lunch today. I have to pay in Brazil taxes for healthcare, and we have a very nice healthcare proposed system, which doesn't work. Because it doesn't work, I have to pay for private insurance. So I have to pay for taxes for the healthcare, and I have to pay for private insurance. Same as education. I was lucky enough to have a good public education when I was a kid in Brazil. My 9-year-old son is not lucky enough. He has a very bad public education. So I cannot take it easily to put him in a public school. So I pay for private education, but I pay tax for public education as well. So the middle class has got more money, but is paying more and more and more and more. I was talking about people here about certain things that happen in Brazil. For example, if I buy things in credit card, for every transaction, I pay 16% to the bank. Every transaction. If I buy a matchbox or if I buy an airplane, 16% of the banks. I could choose not be a client of the bank. No, I cannot. Because I'm a federal employee, I have to be a client of the bank. So just by starting, I pay to the bank. So the social justice situation in Brazil becomes an imbroglio in which you can see from the outside a very nice picture. The country is going good. It is the 5th or 6th economy in the world, but this money is all getting to the rich and to the corporations. So that's a big dilemma talking about social justice in Brazil today, as well as it takes us to what is our vocation. Now, why talking about vocation? That's a Freirean issue. I talked a lot with Freire about that. Is it our vocation to be with a private life, the privatization of life, the economic situation in which we live? Is that our vocation? Capitalism is our vocation. That's the question we can ask. How do we go about living life, and what's the mission of life? What's the goal of life? What's the meaning of life? What's our vocation? That's another dilemma. Why is it a dilemma? Because I believe firmly that what we are is mediated by economic, political, and social context. So our vocation sometimes clashes against the economic, political, and social paradigms that we live through. And another dilemma, of course, comes with identity. That comes right after vocation. If our vocation is to live competing with each other for success, what is our identity? Is it different if we think of our vocation as being solidary with each other? That's the dilemmas we're going through. Right after that, I talk about humanization. That's the first sentence of Freire's seminal book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And I think that's one of the books that I would put in. It's a fad now, this book, like 1,000 movies you have to see before you die, right? They could make 20, but maybe 1,000. So you don't want to die before you see this 1,000 movies, 1,000 books that you have to see. Well, if I put like the 20 books that you have to read before dying, I would put the Pedagogy of the Oppressed as one, certainly, Freire's book. The first sentence in that book says that it's still, I can't quite tell exactly the sentence, but it's more or less like this. The big issue for humanity is still the issue of humanization. That's a powerful sentence. And Paolo Freire starts one of the most important books ever written on earth, saying that humanization is a problem, is the big problems. From the axiological point of view, that's the sentence. From the axiological point of view, the issue of humanization is still the biggest issue for human beings. And that's an interesting thing. Because dogs don't need to be dogized, right? Elephants don't need to be elephant-sized. But human beings need to be humanized. And why is that? It's because somehow we are finding out that we're being dehumanized. And if we're being dehumanized, we have to think about it. Because we're losing our identity as human beings. And that's very dangerous. If that would be true, we are in a situation that our species could be in danger. Because if the elephants lose their identity as elephants, they're going to be destroyed. If the fish lose their identity as fish, they're going to be destroyed. Wouldn't that happen to human beings as well? So we have to think about it. That's my stance on that. Then what else we have? Of course, it takes us to ethics and to transcendence. Why? Because as a researcher, I've been pretty much discussing the nature of objectivity. And what we are discussing today is that there's no objectivity in the world. Everything is subjective from the beginning. Everything is based upon a moral issue. And of course, I'm in the university, I don't need to go in depth into this. But what is happening is that although we have found that out, and you can read in most of the modern philosophies and most of the modern philosophy of science, that everybody's coming to that conclusion, because although you have parameters and objective world and objective research, but you start from premises, and premises are always subjective. But although we have discovered that, we still think about how we're going to be neutral and objective. And that takes a lot of decisions on what kind of morals and what kind of ethics we are going to be our premises so we can proceed to knowledge. So let me go a little bit more in that. Getting back to the beginning, if we think about social justice, and I want to take social justice to social policy because I know a part of this audience here is probably in health field, social care, the arts. Most people, I believe who was here, work with people. So most people here work with social issues, and most people work with social action and, of course, social policy. So putting together social justice and social policy, here are some of the questions I think we are asking. There's nothing new in that, but I just brought it for provoking thoughts. If we're talking about enacting good social policy, and we're talking about social justice, of course we have to start from what is it? What is justice? Who does it? To whom? In favor of what? And against what? In Brazil, we are very critical of everything. And part of that is the way we are brought up. We are brought up in a context that makes us very skeptical of what is that government is doing to us, what is it that the world is doing to us, what direction we're going, what are our values, are these values right? And for many of these, Our answer is we don't know. We are doing things, but we don't know what we are doing. So if we don't know what we're doing, we don't know a lot of stuff, including what is justice. Is justice protecting, for example, intellectual rights? That's an interesting question. Why is it an interesting question? In Brazil today, we don't have much money for protecting the safety of people. We don't have enough police, for example. Our cities are becoming too big. Now, when cities become too big, first of all, we like it a lot. Because, hey, more money, more commercial, more industry, more of everything. After a while, we kind of think, hey, we were happy we didn't know it when it was smaller. Less money, less this, less that, less cars, and less safety. A lot of the city I live in is a city that today I cannot go out without, I live in a house, so I cannot live without dogs. Now, they're having this condominium kind of style there, where you close yourself on the walls, and you put a security with a guard, and they have machine guns to protect against what comes from outside. And I have to have dogs in my house because I don't live in a condominium and I have a machine gun. So I have to have a dog. I have 4 dogs in my house. My child cannot go outside in the street because the cars go too fast, although it's a residential street. So when you think about these things, we come to a conclusion that I don't know how much progress has been done of good for my life and for my family. Certainly, we have lots of good things. I mean, email is a good thing. I wouldn't be here without email. Technology is a good thing. But there's a lot of stuff that, I don't know, they seem too much. They seem a dilemma for me. So I got to these questions here. What is justice? What is it for? And so forth. And justice works in favor of whom? And I brought the issue of intellectual property just because although the government doesn't have any money for people's safety, but they have lots of money to protect intellectual property. It's amazing the amount of information that we have today in radio, television, the amount of people that sells CDs in the street. They are arrested because they're selling CDs and DVDs and stuff, which probably is wrong. I don't know, probably it's wrong to sell those things without the permission of the author. But it's amazing how much money is put into that and less into the safety of my family. So I kept thinking about it, and I wrote down this. What are some of the issues that are important in social policy? And who's responsible for solving the problems? And how are decisions made and based upon? Now, these are interesting issues to whoever worked with social action, social issues. If you think about how we make health policy, educational policies, housing policies, there's a lot of questions for me on how is it all made, and how is it coming for or against the progress of the world, the progress of our species, the progress of our society, and the progress of our interactions and solidarity. One thing that comes to my mind is education. I'm very interested in basic education, of course, because I have this 9-year-old kid now. And education in Brazil has become a matter of performance. So everybody wants to be a doctor, because if you're not a doctor, you're nothing. So that's not good. I had, when I was practicing clinical work, and I stopped 10 years ago because I got this job at the university, then you have to be what I call exclusive dedication. You cannot do anything else. You have to be there for the university. So I stopped clinical work. But when I was doing that, I had to treat a youth. He wanted to be a mason. And his father didn't want him to be a mason. His father was a lawyer and wanted him to be a lawyer. And now, the guy who was very intelligent went to the university, to law school, and ended up in the psychiatrist treatment because he was not happy being a lawyer. So he tried to suicide. He tried to kill himself because his father was successfully making him a lawyer, but he didn't see any meaning in his life being a lawyer. So when I think about education, I think about who decided that people has to be a doctor? Who decided that people has to be lawyers? Who decided that everybody has to have A concept? And if you don't have that A, you are B or a C or a D, you're nothing. So lots of stuff like that. Who decides what are the good things for you to do with your health and how you look good or you look bad, and how these things become education? And how do this thing work with the people, and how are the people responding to that? So, when I think about vocation, coming back to those issues, that's what I think about human beings. What is our vocation? Our vocation is to interpret the world and do it symbolically. This is one vocation we have. We talk to each other, we create language, we speak to each other. So people has a vocation of communicating. People has a vocation of being together, of trying to being together. Another thing that we think is the search for knowledge. Human beings like to know things. They like to learn. They like to solve problems. Every kid, 3, 4-year-old, they love it. They love to solve problems. They love to learn. And we do too. We like to imagine. I think hope is a vocation. We like to imagine a better future. We like to hope for things. We don't want to be hopeless. We like to work to create situations better than we are. I think this is another vocation we have. I think it's a vocation. I think when I discussed this very much with Freire, and he would say, well, I would say, well, but there's a lot of people that are not like that. And he would say, well, you know, something must be wrong with them, because most human beings, they like to be hopeful. Nobody likes to be hopeless. When you feel hopeless, you feel sick. You feel that you are ill. Human beings are gregarious. That means that we like to solve problems, but working together, collaborating with each other. Most of our actions are not, vocationally speaking, solitary. We don't like solitude. Even those kids today, or those people who are 24 hours a day in their, looking at their little things there, but they have they are under the impression that they are with somebody, even through the machine, but you can see them. You can see them everywhere. You cannot talk to a human being anymore these days. Everybody we're going to go talk to, they are doing something else. They are somewhere else. But still, they are communicating. Still, they're using symbols to communicate. They are doing something together. And that brings me to the idea that one of our vocations is solidarity. People like to help each other. They like to do something to solve their own problems, but also other people's problems. Sometimes actually are better at solving other people's problems than ours, right? That works everywhere. It's great when somebody comes to us with a problem, we can solve it. We have the same problem, we cannot solve it, but we solve the other people's problems much better. And there are some explanations for that. The anthropologists and the neuroscientists have a lot of explanations for that. But that is true, that happens. Humanization, I think, is a vocation I thought about. Empathy is another one. And that's a great one, because we could not survive if we did not have empathy. Because empathy is a principle that somehow I understand what you are doing, what you're thinking, and where you are. Even if I make a mistake in that interpretation, but I believe I can relate to it. So these are things that I believe are in the vocation thing. And transcendence too. I think transcendence is the situation in which you believe that you participate in more than the normal, let's put it that way. You are part of something bigger. You are not just a material being that's going to finish when you're finished. You go for more. There's something else, and that can be translated for some people as religion. That can be translated for some people as a social mission. That can be translated into a myth of hero, whatever angle you want to put. But most people feel that need or that urge for transcendence. And of course, all of that is going to go through the transformation of reality. If you hope for something better, if you want to solve problems, if you want to help people, what we do all the time is trying to transform reality. These are my thoughts on the issue. And we can talk about humanization and how human beings, what's humanization? I think humanization is when you make human being the reference, the central reference for what you do. The central reference is not what you're going to get out of it, but is the human being. Is how the human being is going to be better, how you're going to work for the human being, emphasizing that interpersonal interaction. So humanization is something that has to do with our values, our beliefs, our attitudes, and our behaviors. But these things are all culturally defined. You are not born with values. You are not born with beliefs. You learn it somewhere. You learn it from somebody. You learn it some way. So having said so, my next thing has been, if we think about all that, put it all together, who are we? And why do we do things the way we're doing it? I think this is the big piece of reflection that I've been struggling with. So that's an issue of identity. Who am I? Meaning, what am I? I mean, what's my identity? How I came to be who I am, and why I do things the way I do. So that led me to reflect on the construction of identity. How is my identity constructed? So some thoughts about it. Identity springs from what we know or what we think we know. Because if it's learned, if it's based on concepts, if it's based on things that people told us, that's things that we got knowing. We know, we learn as we grow up. So it's learned, acquired, but within cultural contexts. What you know as an American when you're a kid, what you learn, can be different of what you learn when you are in Mozambique, or even within a country. In Brazil, you learn to be a Brazilian if you are a white middle-class person. Different than you learn to be a Brazilian if you are native Brazilian, or if you are in the lower middle class, if you live in a slum, if you are a son of a policeman, or if you are a daughter of the president of the country. So we learn differently. We learn different things, and we form our cultural and personal identity in a very complex context of knowledge. So all of this is permeated by social institutions, education, family, healthcare, interactions with police, government, everyday life kind of stuff. And everything is guided by social, political, and economic paradigms. It's because your social background, your economic background, because of the political situation, we learn things differently. And these are passed to us in certain ways where the media has a very strong role in that. So if you look at that, the next thing is, okay, so if it's mediated by cultural and social context, what is our social and cultural context today? What are we learning? How are we learning to be? How are we in the world? How is the design? What's there that rains upon me? What is it they say to me? Let's take the situation as I see it. In Brazil today, I could say safely that we live guided by a market mentality. A market mentality means that we have a market economy. So most people tell us every day that, for example, private is better than public. Make money is meaningful life, is meaningful. Actually, making money could be the mission of life, could be the orientation to our life. Being number one is good. So competition is a value for us today. A lot of stuff is based on what I call the American way of life. And the American way of life is being around. Maybe you don't realize that, but if you're out of the country, you can see that. That's interesting. Somebody asked me, oh, you travel a lot. What do you see in the world? I would say the only place I went in the last 10 years that was a little different from anything else was India. The only place. All of the rest, if you close your eyes today, look the same. If you were in a shopping center in China, maybe it's different because it's huge. It's bigger than anything. Shopping centers in China are immense. Everything in China is too big. But if you just look inside of the corridors, it's the same. It's the same Nike, Reebok, McDonald's, Burger King. They're everywhere. They're in Malaysia. They're in South Africa. Everywhere. My 9-year-old child doesn't have one hero that has a Brazilian name. None. You know what they see in television and media? Same as your children. Is Dragon Ball. Is Ben 10. A Ben 10, you call here? Ben 10? You have the Ben 10? Huh? Yes. You have it. That's a sect, right? It's a religion for young kids. It's Japanese. Ben 10 is actually Japanese, I think. But the names are no Portuguese names. There's no Portuguese heroes. What does it do to a kid? That's an interesting question. From one point of view, it's kind of nice. It's global. Everybody has the same heroes. Everybody has the same values. Everybody has the same thing. We come into a world that, it's easy to communicate with each other. But is it? How about the need for different cultures? Is that a need? I think that's a question to be there. I don't have an answer for that. But I remember studying history when the Portuguese came to Brazil. They destroyed the native Brazilian culture. They destroyed in different ways. They destroyed materially, like putting, for example, they would put like cloths they would put smallpox so the Indians would die and they would have the land. One problem we had is destroying the native Brazilian culture was that the Europeans didn't have a clue on how to deal with the Brazilian environment. Guess how is Brazil today? There's no water in São Paulo. Why? Because they put the whole city around the river, the Tietê River. So they destroyed the river. There's no coming back. You cannot take the city out anymore. But you don't have water. Now they're getting water 400 kilometers out of São Paulo. But the people there, where they're getting water, say, no, we don't want to give the water to São Paulo. So a clash. Now, the native Brazilians never did it. It's amazing. There's no history showing that they would put places by the river. They would take some distance from the rivers. They would never pollute the rivers because they drink the water. The Portuguese didn't know that. They polluted everything. So that leads us to think that some cultures are needed, not as acculturated, but as they are. We should preserve them not because it's nice, but because we need, perhaps, we need their history, we need their historical relation to the earth so we can have a better earth. Without them, maybe we don't have a good environment. That's one example. So making everything under one culture, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe it would be better if we have different cultures strong. Maybe it would be better for my child if he had some Brazilian heroes instead of just American and Japanese heroes. So that's an interesting question to lead us to what values, beliefs, and we have shaped by the economy. What are those values? Brazil today, with the market mentality, following that line of thought, I think I can safely say that these are some of the values that are strongly being taught through media corporations. Number one is profit. If it's profitable, it's good. That's a moral principle. Anything is profitable is good. Except, of course, drug trafficking. But still, drug trafficking controls the country anyway. So, but profit is good. Money is good. Making money is good. I'm not saying that making money is not good. I have to make money. All of this was bought with money. But I don't know if it's a good idea to think that money is a main value for human life. That's what I'm struggling with. Money is a good idea, I think, but as a value, I don't know. And another value is accumulation. It's amazing how people get into accumulation of money. The big accumulators of money that we see more visibly in Brazil today are soccer players. Now, Ronaldinho, some of you are soccer fans perhaps. Who heard about Ronaldinho here? Oh, good. People like soccer here. A guy of that stature makes about $1 million a month. Now think about it. He amasses this $1 million a month from somewhere. So people give them $1 million a month. 12 million a year. Some make much more than that. You have basketball players here probably. You have football players here. You have all kinds of people that makes like millions. Millions and millions and millions. Now if you think about it, most of you are probably people just normal like me. It takes me 25 years to make $1 million working. Now I live pretty well. I have food, go to the beach, watch movies, travel, have nice clothes, and I make nothing comparing to these guys. But it seems like almost like a vocation for people today to make more and more and more and more, even if you cannot spend that money in 20 lives. If you pass like a soccer player career makes 7 to 10 years, that's the average. 10 years making 12 million a year. and putting that in the bank and having more money, you're going to have like 4 or 5 generations of money. But people do it. At the cost of what? That money comes from somewhere. Technology is another value today. What is technology as a value? Well, it's good is because it's technology. So you have this little thing here. I can call people, but it's not enough. I have to talk to people. That's nice. I like Skype. I can talk to my family over Skype and stuff. But I don't want only that. In 2 years, this is going to be obsolete. Because new technology is there. Now you have to buy the new technology because otherwise you're a nerd. You're stupid. You don't have WhatsApp? You cannot. You have to have WhatsApp. So everybody has to have WhatsApp. Oh, you don't have a Facebook. How come? You're nothing. So you keep having to go there, having to go back there, and now there's this new application. You have to have it. Otherwise, you're nothing. So it's a value. You are recognized for the technology you use. And so on. You can recognize probably now all of those values I'm talking about there. We live in a throwaway society. It's amazing the amount of trash we throw away every day. The newness as a value is good because it's new. So throw away the old. Superficiality of relationships, superficiality of knowledge. We have a lot of information. How much knowledge we get out of this information today. Ephemerity. Everything is ephemeris, like this. It's obsolete. 2 years. Not good anymore. Anything, a car has been new. And a fatalism. What is fatalism? Is the impression that no matter what you do, it's not going to change anything. That's fatalism. There's only one way to go. All of this is there, is given. You can't change it. And of course, leads to conformity. I'm pretty safe to say that Brazil lives under this thing here. I don't know about you, but so, putting all this together, of course, I come to be in a state of perplexity. And I ask myself, what then? Where do you go from this? Where do you go from here? Lots of good stuff happening, lots of dilemmas, a lot of paradoxes, a lot of things to think about it. I cannot escape just thinking about myself. What's my role in all that? What are we really doing? So I'm a professor at the University, Federal University of Santa Catarina. I have like 50 students every semester, medical students. They're going to be doctors. Doctor in Brazil is the next thing to God. There's God, then the doctors. The doctors don't know that. They think they're better than God. They're there. Okay? What a doctor say is said. So I have to teach these kids. They come pretty young to the university today. They come 16-year-old, 17-year-old. Amazingly, in 3 semesters, they think that they can tell people what people should do. They go out there and teach in 3 or 4 semesters how a woman should have a baby. Sometimes are male kids, and they tell the women how they should have a baby, what you should eat, how you should behave, what kind of relationships you should have, everything. Because with the idea of social medicine, medicine is not interested anymore only in disease. They're interested in life as a whole. So the medical doctors tell everybody what they should do. So I have to teach these kids. It's tough. Because they look at me They say, well, this is a professor. Almost all professors in your medical school are doctors, medical doctors. And they expect me to be just like they think a medical doctor should be. So it's tough because I'm not. So there's a clash there. So if we think about that, I have to think, what do I represent? What are the values that I represent? Every time I come to a place like this where I'm at now, or in front of a class of medical students or nursing students, I'm representing something. Could be the pharmaceutical industry. Could be the social action movement. But something that I represent, and everybody expects me to say something, representing something that resonates with them. What do I do? What values drive me? I have to ask myself, do these values influence my professional everyday life? How? What is it that I do that represent the values I want to transmit to people? And how does the market mentality affect all of that? I think about my kid, I think about how is the market mentality going to affect him? What's going to happen? I just hope that he will do something else than just want to make money. I just hope. I have no control. I got a present today. Cindy gave me a book. It's called Hold On to Your Kids. I want to read it because I want to know how to do it. And this guy, this seems to be a nice guy, writes about it. And I hope it's very thought-provoking. I know it is because Cindy wouldn't give me if it was not. But I think we have a big role in all this. Every one of us have a lot of power. We exercise a lot of power, especially people who are in universities. The university today is probably among the most powerful situations that we have. Anything people will do will have to be signed by science. If it was not some PhD who said it, no good. You watch television, they said, well, chocolate is good for your heart. Who is saying that? Guy there, no good. Oh no, there's this guy from Harvard, PhD, University of Washington. He said chocolate's good for your health. Let's eat chocolate. Right? I don't know what is the status now. I was following this. Last time chocolate was good. A few years before, chocolate was not good. Somebody from Harvard said that chocolate was not good. Coffee is coming now, is good. Coffee is good. 3 times a day only. And not those coffee from Starbucks coffee. It's just little coffee 3 times a day is good for your health. Until recently was not. Any coffee was bad. Alcohol is bad for your health. But a glass of wine is good for your health. Everything. Who said that? Us. University people. PhDs. That's what counts. So we have some power, we transmit some values, we have some responsibility doing all that. And we run the risk of ambiguity. I think about that all the time. I was walking down Clark Avenue yesterday not, the day before, in Chicago, before coming here, afternoon. Clark Avenue is a nice neighborhood, Lincoln Park, Chicago. I was running there, thinking about what I'm going to talk about to these people in the University of Washington. They invited me there. So I'm walking like every professor 2 days before. Oh my God, what am I going to do? They invited me. I have to say something intelligent. I have to look good. So I'm walking there thinking about solidarity. Then a homeless guy comes. And he stops in front of me and asks me something. I couldn't understand what it was. My first thought was get $1. Then I remembered I didn't have any money in my pockets, only a credit card. So I said, sorry, Paul, I don't have anything to give you. And just walked away. I felt very uncomfortable. I felt really bad. I said, oh, here I am talking about solidarity to people. What the hell am I doing? I didn't even talk to the guy. Just thought about money, giving it. This is not solidarity, this is charity. What am I going to do? So I stopped in a corner there. And I said, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? I'm going to get back and talk to him. By the time I stopped in the corner and I leaned against the wall there, I can do that because I'm a tourist. Tourists can do these things, you know, can lean against the wall and stop in the street and do nothing. I started to see people walking by. And I don't know what happened. It was one of those magic moments that I started to think that most people I saw walking, and that's just I'm not saying that this is the truth, I'm just saying an experience I had. They looked unhappy. Nobody was smiling. Everybody was why are they not smiling? I mean, they're here in Chicago. I mean, this is a nice place. Everybody's well dressed. This is a nice neighborhood. Nobody's smiling. They walked by. And I thought, well, solidarity is not only for the poor. All of us may need some kind of solidarity. We just have to find a way. Then I walked back and talked to the guy. It's a whole story. But the point is the realization that solidarity is not only charity. It's much more than that. And it's not only for the poor. Solidarity is for us. Solidarity is in any moment. It must be in your body, in your behavior, in every minute of your life, to anyone. Because we have a lot of mechanisms of exclusion in society. And I think some of those values exclude people. Competition, for example, that's a value in society, in our society at least. We are becoming very individualistic, very competitive. We are dividing our society into winners and losers. For every number one, there's 100 of losers. But only the number one is going to be noticed. The losers are just losers. They become invisible. What they do? We know what number ones do, but what do the losers do? They disappear. They disappear in the crowd. They walk with very serious faces in Clark Avenue or anywhere. Because you're not number one, you're nothing. So competition is doing that to us. And maybe you can put a theory that much of the suffering in the world and much of the violence could be because the losers want revenge. So putting it all back together, I thought about what is then solidarity? How can I be solidary? What is solidarity? I'm struggling with that question. So, as of today, I think that part of the solidarity has to do with knowledge. Because the power of knowledge is enormous, and we build our identity upon knowledge. So we have a great responsibility of working on knowledge. As of today, I think that, and I'm talking to inside of a university here, maybe that's why I focus on that, there are different ways of acquiring knowledge. In my country today, knowledge is very under still the positivistic paradigm, which replicates much of the knowledge we have already constructed, but doesn't create much new knowledge. And I'm not saying that positivism is not good or not making a value judgment, but we miss something there. We miss a knowledge that can tell me about every person. We miss the narratives. We miss the people telling us about their lives, about their hopes, about their suffering. We know very well how many people are depressed today in my city. We don't know much about how they cope with it, how their families help them, how do they see their doctors, because we don't ask them. We ask what is in the protocol. I have a protocol with the questions to make the diagnosis, and from the diagnosis I give the medication. We don't do much more than that. We don't know the person. We actually categorize them. Is a depressed person. We have to do this. But I don't know her name. I don't know their expectations. I don't know what they have in their hearts. So we need to go for knowledge that's different. And I was very impressed with the Champaign conference and how much arts-based research is being there, creating new knowledge. Participatory action research, research that people participate from the design to the results, to the interpretation of results. A lot of they call in Brazil participatory action research is not. I design the research, then the subjects participate when I collect the data, then I take it all by home, and with my computer, I get the results, and I'll write the interpretation. This is not participatory. Participatory is coming there with open heart, and before ask any questions, talk to the people. So maybe we have different research questions than we would think we would have. So I think this has to do with solidarity, because then you start to know what's inside of people. And I think that's the most deep level of solidarity, is knowing somebody else, is having an empathy with somebody else, understanding somebody else. I think that being solidary is to promote citizenry, is to make policies, to make laws, to make rules that have always in sight citizenry, human rights, and wellness, the good feelings of people, and thinking about how people get better. Somebody told me that in Seattle or in Washington, the state of Washington, there is a law that for everything you do, you have to refer to social justice. I thought it was marvelous. I thought it was a great thing. I don't know if it works or not, but I thought the idea is great. This is progress when you can put that into the policy itself. Write it down. It's there. It's a law. I think that being solidary is practice professions trying to empower people. And I'm in the healthcare field. Healthcare field tends to make people dependent. We don't empower people. They depend on us. If we are not there, they panic. So empowering people is being solidary, because you give them an opportunity to start to make decisions on their own lives. And it's practice every day, every moment, to everyone. But also I think that we have to be humble. I think we have, in all that, we want to change the world, We have to be aware of our own limitations. I always like to say that. What's the limitation of your talking here? Well, I'm a human being. I'm not a superhero. I do a lot of wrong things. I'm just like everybody else. I have my days that I'm not good. I have my days that I'm, just want to kill the first one that comes to my face, I do have it. Everybody has it, I hope. Otherwise it wouldn't be human, right? Humanization includes that too. Being human is not being perfect. And one of the why do I say that? One of the problems I have with medical students are among the ones that most commit suicide in my university. There are at least one per year. Nobody talks about it. They are the ones who are most depressed. They want to go to the social service inside of the university for depression. They kill themselves. They're under pressure. One of the pressure they're under, they have to be perfect. They start to deal with human suffering, and if they fail, as they think, sometimes that they failed, they get depressed. And I think it's a preoccupation of the university to help them. To say, hey, you're going to be wrong sometimes. You're not going to do everything you can do. So we have been trained, shaped, and manipulated for non-solidarity. I can safely say that in Brazil. We are being trained to be number one. We want to be number one. We have been trained to make money. We are losing some of the Brazilian traditions of being together, of helping. Partly because of the violence, too. It's isolating us. Partly because of technology. We don't see each other anymore. We talk to people over a square. We are becoming unaccustomed to be in the presence of people. So to be solidary maybe is a struggle. It's not easy. It's easy to do charity. That's the easiest part. I went to South Africa, I think, a week ago or so. I don't know anymore. Lost in time and space. Because I had these two conferences that came together. I go every year I go to two conferences at least. They came right, one finished in one day, the other started here, next day. So I was in South Africa, came home, changed clothes, and literally came to the States. So we went there and had a bunch of people there, and we went to see some schools. I saw some amazing schools in South Africa. Name of the place I was Potchef's Room. I took like a week so I could pronounce the name. I can say it easily. Potchef's Room. That's the name of the place. You know that. You been there?
No, I've been near there.
Okay. So Potchef's Room is inland South Africa. I saw a school I never seen in the whole world. It's like, I don't know, I'm not good in numbers, but it's huge. Like sports, everything you can think of was there. Then they took us to another school, black school, only black kids. Horrible. Kids were behind the, what's it called?
Barbed wire.
Yeah, barbed wire thing. Nice kids. No shoes. No uniform, nothing. Just ragged clothes. So people got together and said, oh, let's give some money to these kids. So they put together some money and sent to the school. And they applauded and very happy. That's nice. I think it's very nice. I think it was a very nice move. But not going to solve the problem of those black kids in South Africa. I don't know what's going to solve their problem, but it made me think. Charity. It's nice. It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. But doesn't change, doesn't help changing anything. What I think about these things. And finally, leads me to say that solidarity maybe is a social movement. It's a part of something that we have to do, this social action, you may call. Because of the fact that it's a struggle. There is somebody there interested in giving me some kind of knowledge and make me believe that I'm being solidary by handing out money. That's what they call solidarity in Brazil, a lot of times. They have a lot of solidarity projects. You give money, give to the poor. But maybe it's not enough. Maybe solidarity has to do with transforming the reality, engaging in some social project. And I think about that in this way, that the world is a territory. There's a lot of clashes, a lot of bad things happening, a lot of suffering. And maybe solidarity is something that sometimes is to share, being with. Sometimes solidarity is just being with. Not even important the money in some moments. Sometimes you sit down as a homeless person and talk to them. Don't give them any money sometimes. And they feel good about it. You feel good about it. So not always solidarity is helping the poor with money. Sometimes it's just being with a person. Sometimes it's holding a hand. I would love to show you now what I do there in Brazil with the kids that I think is a solidarity thing. This is some work we do in Brazil with a group of kids of the university. We do a lot of things that we did like this morning, workshops and stuff. And we try to prepare these kids and form them to have a more solidary position in their lives. So I got a bunch of kids. Initially, this project had kids from health field. Now they come from everywhere. I have kids from engineering, from social work. They come every week for 2 semesters. And we do a lot of games and exercise and techniques. Then in the end of the semester, of the 2 semesters, they get a certificate. And this is the day of their getting the certificate. We have part of the project, part of them, they can choose to go to as clowns, like in the Patch Adams style, and visit hospitals. You know, we handle them the certificate and everything, and then at this point they are prepared to go out and do the visits. We don't let them go before the whole preparation. And then, this is part of the job. This is a psychiatric hospital. Now, we have these people here. Most of them just waiting for dying. They have no future anymore. They're in psychiatric hospitals. They're there. The state doesn't believe in them. The professionals don't believe in them anymore. There are people there from 20 years, 30 years. They're just waiting for dying. So we get as outsiders there, and we started to work with them. We prepare the kids go there and work with them. We don't care about what they do. We don't care about having, for example, nice things done or anything. The whole idea is that the arts that we use, being drama or designing, whatever, is going to be a bridge for the kids meeting these people and the people meeting these kids. Surprisingly, we saw some people that professionals would say to us, oh, this guy don't talk. Oh, this guy doesn't relate to anyone. This guy doesn't have any affection. We saw all the list of symptoms that these people have no hope, they don't talk, they don't have any affection. They've been there for 20 years. In one semester, sometimes in 1 year, sometimes in 3 months, we see people that are there for 20 years talking, relating, being affectionate. It was amazing for us to see that. I said, well, these people have been working here. They have a whole state institution working for them. You have doctors, you have psychologists, you have occupational therapists, you have, name it. And all of them tell us, this guy don't talk. This guy doesn't relate. This guy has no affection. There's no hope. And in a month or 2 or 3 months, you train these kids that don't know nothing about anything. They just go there. And while we teach them to be respectful, to become friends, to listen to people, to talk to people, to hug them, to say hello, sit down and do stuff. And surprisingly, these people start to get better. So that's one of the things that we do there. The other part of it is that we started to see that not only the patients that we attend to get better, the kids start to tell us that they were feeling good about it. And that was the best part of it. Because the kids would come to us and say, oh, I came here, I had a lot of headaches, migraine, a lot of stuff, stomach pain. And I got better. And I feel good about it now. I feel good about what I'm doing. I just got this part of the design. I had another one, we do some theater with them, we do some work in the body, but it was not successful in putting in the flash drive here. Now I think this, to a great extent, what we teach them is to be solidary with people. We don't teach them symptoms or how to diagnose or how to do therapeutics. We just say to them, okay, now you're ready, you go there. Do what? Say, well, what we're going to do is get there, get to know people, get together, listen to them, and use the tools that we gave to you. And we supervise them. And it has been great. It has been a great project. I wanted to show you that because I'm talking, but what do I do? So this is, I think it's one of the best things I do, is running this kind of project there. I would like to thank you for listening to me. It was being very good to be here, and I hope if you have any questions or something we can talk about a little bit. That's what I had for today. Thank you very much.